Hey folks, welcome back to Leader Talk. I'm SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell. Been a busy couple of months here with travel and work and things like that, but a lot to catch up on here. And today, this segment is going to be focused on the recent Secretary of War meeting and some of the things that came out of that, some of the issues that the Secretary brought up, and some of the things that were played out on social media and mainstream media to try and push narratives and things like that. So I want to discuss that today. If you don't know, it was a couple of weeks ago that the Secretary of War called for a meeting of all of his senior general and flag officers, all of his general and flag officers, and their senior enlisted leaders, called them all to Quantico, Virginia for a big meeting. Nobody knew what this meeting was about beforehand, so they assembled all 800 of them, around 800, in the Marine Corps Museum there in Quantico, and the Secretary had this meeting. And he was there to discuss issues and the direction that the department was going, and some of the things that they were going to get after and some of the things they were going to eliminate. Now, Troxell's opinion, I don't know if he needed to bring all 800 of these senior leaders there. I think we have a succession of command in the chain of command that could have been a little bit more fiscally responsible to have a meeting like that. But I'm not the Secretary of War. I'm just a retired guy that has an opinion. I agree in principle with some of the things he was talking about that the department really needs to get better at, and some of the things that may have atrophied. But I'm not a big fan of the delivery to this senior august group. So let me talk about what I agree with. He talked about the health and fitness of the force, and that's an issue. And the language he used was, he's sick of seeing fat generals and admirals. And now I will tell you, I spent a lot of time with the troops. I spent a lot of time doing PT with the troops, physical training, and seeing them in training. And I have to agree that we have some service members out there that, dare I say, plump, but are obese. And this isn't a new issue we've had. We've had this issue with troops being out of shape, even back when I was the SEAC, when Secretary Mattis was first addressing this. But let me give you some examples of what I've seen. So in May, I participated in a division level run with about 18,000 soldiers. And I will tell you, we were averaging about a 10, 30, 11-minute mile for this 4-mile run. And there had to be hundreds of troops that fell out of this run at this very slow pace. And then 2 months later, I did a corps level run with a formation. And a like number, hundreds of troops fell out of that run, to the point that the commander of that organization even said to me after the run, we have some fat people in our formation. And he even addressed the audience and said, if you fell out of this run, you need to get your ass in shape. And I agree with him. Because here's the deal, and I think we all know this and it's common sense. The more sedentary our force is, the less resilient they will be. The less physically fit they are, the less resilient they will be. The less physically able to be able to accomplish hard tasks under the worst conditions in combat, especially in large-scale combat, they will be. And additionally, the less physically fit they are, the more it's going to affect them mentally and emotionally in the ability to do their job. And I think we all know in military service, your service starts off, can you do your job in combat against an armed enemy? And that starts with your physical readiness and fitness in your health. So I agree with the Secretary there. We really got to get after this. And it wasn't that long ago that when I was a SEAC, Secretary Mattis saw this and was tired of the physically non-deployable troops that we had at that time. And he even put out a letter saying you had a year to get deployable, or they were going to process you for elimination, which caused a reaction to get after the necessary things we needed to do. So I agree that this message needs to be sent and that it will kickstart where we're at in terms of our physicality and our health and wellness. He also talked about grooming standards. Now, although I believe grooming standards aren't as nearly as key to combat effectiveness as physical fitness, along with lethality in combat tasks and things like that. But when you talk about serving as a person in the United States military that is a representation of the strength of the United States of America, then that comes with an air of responsibility that you have to condition how you look, how you act, how you talk, so that when it's time to perform, you perform like the trusted professional. And once again, I spent a lot of time with troops, and we have gotten to the point with grooming standards and appearance that it's not the service members assimilating to what it means to be a military member and a professional of this team of military forces, but it's kind of screwed up where the military now is assimilating to the individual. And we can't have that. The United States military is the best military in the world, and we have to showcase it. So I think there's an importance there about being a professional in this profession of arms by conditioning yourself to a professional look, a professional way you talk, a professional way you act, especially when you're not in uniform, so that it will lead to a professional way you perform in war. So those are the kind of things that I agree with. And I hope because of the Secretary's message, we will continue to get after these things to get our military physically and through our appearance where we need to be. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the things that I don't agree with. So first, let's hear from our sponsors at Downrange Supplements.
Downrange Supplements. As the brand of the troops, we produce only the highest quality supplements conducive to mission effectiveness. Whether it's our fully dosed pre-workout, recovery and rehydration, or Mermite protein, it's time to continually improve your fighting position with Downrange Supplements. Go to www.downrangesups.com today and take your training to the next level.
Hey folks, welcome back to Leader Talk. SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell here. This show is about the Secretary of War's recent meeting with all of the admirals and generals across the Joint Force, as well as their senior enlisted leaders. In this segment, I want to talk about some of the things I disagree with. First of all, any leader in the United States military is responsible for building cohesive teams at echelon. And especially the further you go up, and the more you come out of the tactical level to the operational and strategic, your job is to build cohesive teams in a cohesive team of teams. And so when you bring the senior-most leaders together, I think the message has to be about we and what we're going to do as a team of teams to get after the challenges that the Secretary talked about. In my opinion, some of what the Secretary said came off as a little toxic and caustic. And I don't think at that level you need to tell this audience of general officers and flag officers and nominative level senior enlisted leaders that if you disagree at all with what I'm talking about here, that you need to retire. Hey, here's the bottom line. Every one of those individuals in that room, and I know the vast majority of them personally, the generals, the admirals, the senior enlisted leaders, I know a huge number of them that were in that room. And every one of those leaders, just like I did and anybody else that served in the United States military, swore an oath that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that we will follow the orders of the Commander-in-Chief and the officers appointed over us, regardless of who it is, regardless if they're a Republican or a Democrat or whoever. We serve in an apolitical manner. So if we are to say that the previous administration screwed things up with this DEI stuff and the relaxed grooming standards and the lack of fitness, it wasn't because these generals and admirals and senior enlisted wanted a fat force or an undisciplined force. They were following the orders of the commander-in-chief at that time. And they did it in an apolitical fashion, just like they're doing it right now. And so to say that there was something wrong with these 800 or so senior leaders because they were part of the leadership under the previous administration when they were doing things differently, to say that somehow they were doing something wrong, I think in itself is wrong. Because those leaders are serving selflessly and apolitically in everything they do. There might be a few in there that, have some political partisanship that were going on with their leadership. But I'm here to tell you the vast majority of them are serving selflessly and apolitically. And they are just there to get after the mission in front of them and to follow the orders of those above them. Second of all, the mainstream media and some folks on social media are trying to make sense of the stoic reaction of those senior leaders there. Let me tell you something, as a guy that served almost 38 years, that when you are in a meeting with a senior official like that, in this case, it's the Secretary of War and the Commander-in-Chief, and it comes off as an ass chewing, then you're going to have a stoic look. You're not going to show emotion. I remember when I used to backseat Secretary Mattis and General Dunford during their testimony in front of the House Armed Services Committee and Senate Armed Services Committee. And the Legislative Affairs assistants would coach us, no emotion. You show no emotion. Because not only will those elected officials be looking for some kind of reaction or to point that reaction in a certain direction or to a certain narrative, the media will do the same thing. So the bottom line here, especially in this meeting of 800, where there was media in there, you're not going to get any reaction out of any of those senior professionals. They are there. And again, I guarantee you the vast majority of them agree in principle with what the Secretary of War and the Commander-in-Chief were saying. But they're not going to show any emotion because they are professionals. They are selfless in what they're doing, and they're apolitical in their approach to what they're getting after. And the bottom line here in all of this is that I could tell you that some of those leaders, the vast majority of them, were thinking in their own mind, how am I going to take the direction that the Secretary and the Commander-in-Chief have given us, and how am I going to implement that at my level? That's why you saw some taking notes in there, that they were going to figure out how they were going to apply this. And then, some of the huddles afterwards, but where a commander was talking to their senior enlisted leader, I guarantee you those discussions weren't about criticizing what was being said, even though they may not have agreed with it. It was like, how are we going to move forward to get after the vision and direction that our Secretary of War just gave us? So the bottom line here is, I think the delivery could have been different. I think the method could have been different. As I said earlier, I don't know that you had to bring 800 in. I think you could have brought, the 4 stars in and their senior enlisted. In that echelon, this message could have got down. But I understand the Secretary of War wanted a captive audience with all of the senior leaders in the Department of War to deliver this message. So I get it. But the bottom line is, I think there was ways that this could have been done better. All right, we're going to take another break. We're going to hear from our sponsors at PME Hard Consulting. And when we return, I'm going to talk about stop with the conspiracy theories about the SEC Wars meeting and message. Let's take a break. Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Leader Talk. I want to take a quick moment to talk about leadership. At PME Hard Consulting and Lead, we offer top-tier leadership development and coaching. With over 60 years of combined military and leadership experience to lean on, along with certifications in the Power of Positive Leadership, Power of Positive Teams, and the Energy Bus programs by best-selling author John Gordon, we offer training that will help you cultivate positive, impactful leadership within your organization. To learn more or to schedule your leadership workshop, head to www.pmehard.com and start building a better, more effective leadership team today. Hey folks, welcome back to Leader Talk. I'm SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell. I'm talking about the Secretary of War meeting that happened a couple of weeks ago and talking about some of the things that I saw in that meeting. On this last segment here, I'm going to talk about some of the conspiracy theories that have been going around after the Sec Wars meeting. You know, whenever something happens, regardless if it's military related or government related or whatever it is, administration related, there are people that want to push narratives. There are people that want to push conspiracies. And the mainstream media will try to do that, don't get me wrong. But on social media, it happens all the time. And I was a little disappointed after the Secretary of War's meeting on some of the conspiracy theories that people were trying to throw out there. And listen, when people say outlandish things or outrageous things, or they come up with conspiracy theories, they're doing it to get a response out of an audience. Or they're trying to gather folks that are like-minded on them on the narrative they're trying to push. I'll give you an example. So Secretary of War has his meeting. And then a couple days later, Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Chris Grady, retires, as does the U.S. Special Operations Command Commander, General Bryan. Now, I know both of these gentlemen very well. I've served with both of these leaders when I was the SEAC. And I can tell you, the Sec Wars meeting and their retirements, there was no conspiracy there. They were planned retirements. Admiral Grady had been the vice chairman for almost 4 years. So it was his time to retire. General Fenton had been the SOCOM commander for 3 years. And I was in the Pentagon in June, and I met with the current SOCOM commander who replaced General Fenton, Admiral Bradley, who had already been nominated to take the position and replace General Fenton. And people have to understand a process, okay, that when someone is about to leave, especially at the 3 and 4 star level, and here we're talking at the 4-star level, there is a nomination for that position by the president. And then there is a confirmation process that that person has to get through so that Congress will approve their nomination to the next rank and to that position. Meanwhile, the person that's in that position will continue to serve. So we've known for months, and dare I say that at least a year, that both of these fine leaders were going to leave. But I was extremely disappointed, especially when I saw veterans and service members on social media try to create a conspiracy based off the Sec Wars meeting and that these two fine leaders were retiring immediately after that. There was no drama there, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Those two retirements had nothing to do with the Secretary of War's meeting. And then, as I mentioned before, about the stoic look on the 800 or so leaders' faces. People were looking at the photos there or the clips, and were trying to look and see a reaction out of one of those leaders so they could say, aha, he's disappointed and disgusted with the Sec Wars mission and statement going on here. I'm going to put this on social media to showcase that everybody in that room feels the same way I do and everything. Stop. Enough, okay? I've been in a number of those meetings like that where it felt like I was getting my butt chewed. And I was not going to give any indication to the person administering the butt chewing that I had any kind of opinion about what they were saying. I was absorbing what they were saying and coming up with a plan on how will I implement what is being told to me and how do I get after it in my day-to-day job. And I can guarantee you the vast majority of those senior enlisted leaders and those general officers and flag officers were thinking the same way in that meeting. So the bottom line, especially if you're in uniform and you're a veteran, stop searching for conspiracy theories to push your political narrative. As a matter of fact, stay out of politics altogether. Okay? It's okay to disagree with something. But the bottom line is you have a responsibility to the men and women in your charge, especially if you're a leader. And if you can't control anything, then you shouldn't waste time, energy, and resources on it. And stop trying to create something where there is nothing. Focus on what you can control at your level. And for a leader in the military and for our veterans, your attitude, your actions, your behavior, and your focus on whatever you're doing in your life as a veteran, and certainly your mission in uniform. And leave the conspiracy theories out of it. There is enough disinformation and conspiracies going on social media that we don't need to create internal ones within our active duty force, our Guard and Reserve, and our veteran community. So stay out of the politics, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll end with this. You may not agree with what the Secretary of War was saying. You may not agree with the Secretary of War in the methods that he's getting after performing his duties. But the bottom line is he is the Secretary of War. And in terms of who we are as a nation and who we are in terms of maintaining our ability to be the best military on the planet, then that secretary deserves the support of everyone in uniform and the support of everyone in the veteran community. Like him or not, he is the secretary and we need to support him. Okay, so that's it for this show here. And for my warrior shout out today, I want to give the warrior shout out to those 800 senior leaders that were brought in to Quantico, Virginia for that key meeting with Secretary of War. Because I am confident, as someone that spent 38 years in their shoes and now is a proud retiree that continues to support the military and the men and women in it, that those leaders are going to go out, they're going to get after the necessary issues that the Secretary talked about. They're going to continue to get after the focus on warfighting and lethality, and will continue to keep us as the greatest military on the planet, and will continue to be the leaders we need to defend our freedom, our homeland, and way of life. So my salute goes out to all of those 800 senior leaders and to every man or woman that's serving in uniform or has served in uniform. God bless you all. And that's it for today, folks, for Leader Talk. If you like what you see, follow us on YouTube or on Spotify and check us out. And more episodes to come soon. So in the meantime, God bless you all. God bless our military and veterans, and God bless America. Boom.